Welcome to Thursday Roundtable. Looking forward to today's discussion. We are very excited about our subject and my panel today. We're going to be talking about effective ways to improve healthcare recruitment and retention. And I've got a great panel to talk about that. I'm going to announce them as we go from the top left all the way to the bottom right, and I'll go one by one. We're joined first by Dr. Gloria Blotti. Welcome to the show.
Morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is by you.
It's afternoon here. And so welcome. And then also Sara Macchiano, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're with us. And at the bottom left-hand corner, we have Dr. Bridgette McClarty. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Wonderful subject for us all to discuss.
Absolutely. And also Dr. Susan E. Mazer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Welcome to everybody.
So we have two that have been on and two that's never been on. So it's a nice little mix today. And appreciate all of you being here today and taking your time out. Whenever you do answer your first question, of course, you can tell us a little bit about yourself. But, you know, this is really a subject I think is important not only to me, but also to a lot of folks in my network. And we're in front of something that's going to be pretty much unprecedented is, you know, as things wind down, I hope they wind down. I'm sure they will at some point. But we're looking at a period of time when there's going to be quite a bit of attrition, folks leaving the professions, folks leaving one job to go to another. And so what can we do to help retain those people that we have? And then what can we do to, of course, attract new folks into the industry, right, just to become nurses? And then once they become nurses, perhaps whatever organization that we're working with. So I'd love to kind of address that. And I know that on the front end, I've had some discussions with you, Dr. Blotti. You work with residency programs and things to help train nurses. What are you seeing from your end? Maybe you can get us started. What are you seeing from your end from a recruitment aspect and bringing new nurses into the field?
Los Angeles has been a very different place to work, I think. We were closed down for a very long time out here. And then, you know, they had closed students out of the hospital areas at that point, except we were able to get into some of them. But right now they seem to be in very deep trouble out here in regards to recruiting nurses. Even places that, you know, I've done a lot with children's hospitals. I've run children's hospitals in the United States, and even the children's hospitals are having difficulty out here recruiting. I just talked to a colleague of mine. They're bringing in 90 travelers because they just can't find people to work. So we have some very challenging times, I think, coming up right now. I know that our students are being hired immediately. They're getting jobs wherever they really want right now.
Yeah, I was just
talking. World a year ago.
I was just talking with a facility just today and sharing some stats with them. That if you're interested in a nurse right now, they're expecting not only an interview, but an offer in 24 hours.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's really a different world. And the attrition, as you said, Rose, is really unbelievable at the moment. People are just leaving left and right. Now we have the whole immunizations out here right now that's going on. So there's a drop date of September 5th next week that people will be fired. So,
wow, that's another interesting topic. We need to uncover that and talk about that a little bit more in terms of the vaccination, whether it's required or not, and what we're seeing in the marketplace. So I want to just kind of go round robin with this. What are your thoughts, if any, on the thoughts about recruitment, Sara? Did you want to pipe in with anything on that?
Sure. I would just echo what Dr. Blotti's seeing in the across. I'm on the other coast, and institutions that have historically needed to turn away hundreds of new graduates are likewise having all sorts of job openings, and the vacancy rates are extraordinarily high. When you talk about the travel agencies, the other things that we're seeing is people that would normally come in, stay in a unit for a few years, get their feet under them before maybe they transfer to something else, or leaving within the first year because they're getting tremendous packages and offers to go do travel nursing. to fill a need someplace else, but it's supply and demand. And so it's just creating a hole in the place where they just left. So I think that it is really putting a strain on our health system right now.
Absolutely. And let's see, Dr. McClarty, did you have any thoughts on this?
I do. With each of you being on each of the major coasts, I'm here pretty much in the middle, the Mid-South. And while we talk about the attrition, I like to talk about it from the leadership perspective and the stress and strain that they're feeling from this. They're feeling the stress and the strain from the staff that are on the floor. How do they get the support that they need? They're feeling the stress and the strain from above. Get help in here now. What are those outcomes looking like? Are you still meeting the budget? We're going to tighten the budget a little bit more, even though you're doing a lot more with a lot less. So how do we fix that? And looking at the attrition of those individuals who you oftentimes can't really put a price on what they leave with, the years of experience that they have when they leave. So that's why I like to really talk about the resiliency of not only them, but how do we fix the resiliency of those that we're trying to teach to become the next group of leaders, and how do we stuff that pipeline with that next group of leaders who become experts in those very areas of nursing.
Love that. That's great. And I know I see Sarah shaking her head. She loves that subject as well. So we'll definitely uncover that here in a bit. And then also with you, Dr. Mazur, do you have any thoughts about the recruitment side? I know you got lots of thoughts on retention, but we just want to kind of at least broach this part of it.
Yes, I do, because I've been talking about it with traveling nurses and with nurses who are already on the floor, longtime nurses. And I'm also in the middle of writing a blog about the patient experience and nurse burnout. So what I'm going to suggest to you is that investing in travelers instead of investing in your employees is a double-edged sword. Travelers right now can get $5,000 and $6,000 a week for working, and their nurses have not only not gotten a raise, but the bonuses being offered are insulting. I think that the culture of many healthcare organizations take advantage of their nurses because nurses are nursing and they own their patients. So if a nurse is going to call in, they feel the brunt of the pressure on their colleagues and their patients. Yeah. So many of them for a long time will just do it out of duty, but they run out of that because they don't have anyone at their back.
Right.
But the problem predates COVID.
It does.
And I don't believe that we are going to unwind from this. I think we'll move on from it. But the damage done around the service industry and the healthcare team is such that those who leave nursing will find other ways to nurse. And the hospitals for such a long time have avoided paying their nurses enough out of respect for what they do at the bedside. The doctors still get too much credit. And at least that's my experience.
Yeah.
And I think also that the environment of care is hostile to healing.
Ooh, well, you give
so many of the COVID. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you give between what you're saying and with the others, we got enough content for the next 3 or 4 hours. We only have an hour though.
We do.
I almost stood up and gave you an applause right now.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I didn't mean to cut you off, Dr. Mazur. You had additional. I think we just lost her.
I'm right here.
There we go. I think you're back. I don't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm trying to.
That's okay. We'll come back to you in just a second. So one of the things that I just got in terms of a comment or question, actually, Jessica is asking how are recruiters getting the nurses onboarded so quickly? That's a good question, and I'll ask some more of the folks I've been talking to how that's working, but my assumption is it's only at the offer and accepting stage, right? So that's just a matter of a letter that has some verbiage in there that if the background check doesn't work out or whatever the case is, they would rescind the offer. But as long as everything's good and all, at least has their compensation and what the benefits are, and that seems like that should be pretty simple to send out within 24 hours, especially if you have it ready before you have the interview. If you know they're a good nurse, just go ahead and have that offer letter ready. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Dr. McClarty, go ahead.
Just something.
I agree with you. However, there's a difference in the government environment.
Okay.
And once we figure out how to bridge it and start to see some parallels between the private sector and the government environment, I think we'll see some improvements in onboarding on the government side as we do in the private sector.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that. Dr. Blotti, you had a thought on it?
So what
what
I'd like to suggest is that to equate the skill, insight, scientific understanding, and experience of a nurse just coming out of nursing school to one who's been at the bedside 5 to 10 years is absurd.
Yeah.
Because new nurses are suddenly being thrown in. They're not really being precepted. They're having to go for it, and they're terrified.
Yep. They are terrified. We've tried some different things here, and we have one hospital that we're particularly working with right now. I wish I had all the data for you, Susan, but I don't. But we will, because we're collecting it. But we've started the new nurse from the beginning of fundamentals all the way through to advanced med surg in one hospital, believe it or not. And we had to make the deal with the hospital. We had to get them to buy in, but they had so much turnover at that place, they were dying also. So they decided to do it with us. They now will have 24 people graduating in May. And I feel that my gut is, let me give you my gut. My gut is that since they've spent so much time there, that when they get out, they won't have to do such an intensive kind of orientation. They'll feel like they're part of the family. But what happens is that they're hearing all this negativity around them.
Right.
So it's making them feel like, why do people leave? Why are people going? Is it something wrong? Should we change? But we have to build a culture that they believe in the hospital and they want to work there too. So, and then you also, let me just go back one other step too, because I think it's important. Then we have educators that we're not paying anything to. I mean, they're like the poor people in the line, and it's sad because it's trying to get people that are extremely experienced, that are awesome, to come and teach these young new people coming into the profession. And I can't compete with their salaries anywhere, especially not right now. Really, it's just crazy. It's very difficult to compete with their salaries. I just have to be fortunate that I've been in this business almost 40 years, so I know a lot of people. Yeah. That's the only thing that keeps me alive.
I have a question, Sarah, for you. This is one thing I've asked before, and I wasn't able to get a positive answer. I've asked hospital administrators this: is when you bring in this temporary staff to help your hospital, instead of having them jump in and do the cases, how about having them train some of your newer nurses? Give me your thoughts on just why would it or would it not work?
Sure. So just to give a little context, what my background is, I'm a former administrator, as a nurse administrator and a senior administrative director in clinical operations. So I can see both sides of it. I was a nurse manager on a medical unit for 10 years. And my experience with travelers might be different based on the organization. I was in a magnet institution, and I think that's really important to highlight that there is a reason that we have magnet, and it was developed well over 20 years ago to talk about the difficulty of retaining nurses. And the model, in my experience, works at creating a work environment that people want to stay and work in. So in that environment, just to answer your question, Rollis, when you're bringing in travel nurses and you think about, can they train? I would say you really want people that are training your next group of employees to know your culture, to know your team, to know your leaders. This gets to what Dr. McClarty was talking about with your leadership, that it's the recruitment is one piece. The retention starts at hire.
Okay.
And you want them to feel really committed. And I think that's what Dr. Blotti was starting to talk about in the experience you're having there with putting those students in that hospital. So typically travel nurses are brought in to fill an immediate patient care need.
Okay.
And that's when it's most successful. I mean, I've used travel nurses very successfully, and God bless them. That's a really tough position to fill.
So walk with me on this. I know this is crazy, but what if there were experienced leaders, administrators, trainers, what have you, that have they've been training for years. That's all they do, and they would go around to different hospitals. Could that possibly work? Or the other idea I was thinking is, what if you had a situation where you brought the travelers in to do the casework, but then that freed up the other folks to do the training of the new people?
Yeah, that's typically how, and I don't know if others have experience, that's typically what you would do if you brought in a travel nurse, is you would use them to free up your other staff to help with whatever operational challenge you're facing. If it's that you've got a whole crop of new hires and they need people to be precepted and you've got to adjust your care loads, that is what you would do. But I think this starts to get, and I'm so curious to hear more from Bridgette about this, starts to get to what type of autonomy and support have we given our local leadership to be able to make those decisions? Are they able to do that? And I'm sure you have thoughts on
Bridgette,
that,
please.
Bridgette.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the challenges. While we love to use the word autonomy, what does the execution of autonomy truly look like? Are we using the Merriam-Webster definition when we execute autonomy? Yes, this is your area. You certainly have control to do what you need, but once that leader starts, their way forward with executing what they think the way forward should be for their area, then they're all of a sudden pulled back because they have to collaborate with so many other areas to actually fulfill that execution. And I think at some point we have to figure out with the executives, the C-suite, how to give them that power to say, this is a business within a business. This is my DBA. I'm doing business as under the umbrella of this medical center. And this is what needs to be done. And this is how I plan to move forward. I think when that happens, you're going to see those all employee survey scores start to soar. You're going to see retention improve. You're going to see your leaders stay longer. You're going to see the call out improve. You're going to see that intent to leave improve. Those are my best guesses. And when I've been in the role of nurse manager, director of nursing, chief nurses, those are some of the experiences that I've had. So excellent point that you make there.
Okay, so along with what you just said, one second, I got a comment I just want to read. One thing that's in line with what Bridgette was saying just now, Dr. McClarty, is Glenn Powell. He says, isn't developing a compelling EVP, employer value proposition, that stresses why a passive candidate who's not necessarily unhappy should uproot his or her family and go to work for a relatively unknown employer, a key recruiting and retaining a superior workforce? So I wanted to give you an opportunity, since that's kind of sort of in line with what you were just saying, Dr. McClarty.
I would say so. I will tell you, in times of using the travel nurses, when you find the right one and you say, you know what, this would be a valuable team player, I have worked to recruit them on board. Even if they were someone who lived in somewhere far away, if that investment was right and the team agreed, because I absolutely believe in peer interviewing, if they agreed and they wanted them on the team, I absolutely agree with bringing those individuals on board. And interviews are not one way. Interviews are for all parties. Is this a good fit for us? Is it a good fit for the individuals being interviewed as well as their families? So absolutely.
Very good. And I have another comment. Sorry, Dr. Mazur, I have a comment for you. I want you to address whatever you're going to say, and then also this. It says, Jessica says, since nurses are being offered so much money, they lose sight of why they become a nurse and job hop to hospitals that offer more. So feel free and make a comment on that if you'd like, or whatever you were going to say, please.
Okay, a couple things. One is a job may attract you for the money, but it won't keep you.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a phenomenon called job embeddedness. It means the comfort, there's a match between the individual and the organization in the hospital and the individual and the external community outside the hospital. And the embeddedness means they're not going to leave. But if they don't feel comfortable in their own skin where they are, you're not going to keep them. And money will get them there. But trust me, it will not keep them there.
I love that. That's so true. Dr. Blotti, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, we have some places out here offering $40,000 for a sign-on bonus.
Right.
But they are hopping still. And even in the places that used to have, I used to feel pretty stable amount of staff there, like children's hospitals, although nobody seems to want to work with them anymore. But it was a big deal years ago that people would like. They're even hopping all over the place now. So I think Dr. Mazur is 100% correct. If they don't feel, and I hate to say the word, the love, but if they don't feel the support and the love from that organization, they're going to go. Same with academia.
Yeah.
If they don't feel like I'm supportive here, they're gone. They have too many other opportunities.
Right.
Okay, it's time for this.
I would say that you have to think of it like a marriage.
Yeah.
Right? There's the dating, there's the match, and then there's really understanding what is it like to live here.
Yeah.
And the partner in the marriage is the management, the leadership, their immediate colleagues, the organization. And I also want to bring in one more term. Because of the terrible working conditions when COVID started, and I'm not so sure they haven't gone back to terrible working conditions, it's not uncommon for a nurse to move into learned helplessness, where they feel so ineffective that they feel that their units are really hospice units. Because people come in, once they're ventilated, most of them die. And so the helplessness about, can I really do anything when they're trained to treat and there is no treatment?
Oh, wow.
And we haven't addressed it.
Okay, we got to take a water break on that one. You guys have your water ready?
Is that what you were holding up?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Just to keep the juices flowing here, we do have a comment here from Cassandra. She says a lot of time, lack of trusting the judgment of your leaders and giving them full control over the decision-making process is the issue. She says, that's what I believe. You can get me there with money, but it won't keep me there. COVID showed us people care less about the money if the culture is good where they work at.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's another piece of it. If you look at what nurses are responsible for, and there's not an accompanying level of authority, responsibility without authority, it crashes the individual.
Ooh, yes.
You're expected to do something, but you cannot make decisions that you know from your background, from your research, from your experience is right. And they have to go through the line of who they have to get to sign off. Yeah. Well, people die because of that.
And I think too, Dr. Mazur, a part of that comes from, you think about it, a lot of nurse leaders get their positions because she was a great nurse, so she's going to be a great leader.
That's right.
That's not necessarily the case. And great nurses tend to be people who are problem solvers and they do it themselves. I'm going to take care of my patients. I'm going to do this. I have A to B to do. I have XYZ to do. And they don't allow people to think for themselves. And they take that same practice with them when they become leaders. And it's not that they have a bad intent. They just think that they're doing the right thing. And that's where the learned helplessness comes in, is because they don't put the onus, or as I think it was Brene Brown who said, putting the monkey back on the other person's back.
Right.
Allowing them to think. And if they falter, it's okay. We learn from that together. That's how you learn best. And those are the things that we have to start teaching in order to build that resilience and teach nurses to become better leaders.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Not bosses.
I've got a question.
Right.
We always put a little fun question in here. We got to keep it fun and light too. We're going to do a little bit of that. Okay.
Yes.
So who wants to answer my would you rather question first?
I'll do it.
Okay. Bridget said she'll do
I'll
it.
give it away to the nurses.
All right. So, would you rather, if you had to choose, never be able to drive on the freeway again, or never again make a green light? And those in the comments, I want you to answer the same question. Which one would you choose if you had to? Yeah, this is a good one.
That's hard.
It's good when they're hard.
Never again make the freeway.
Okay.
The freeway.
Why'd you choose
because
that
not
one?
Everyone knows how to drive.
Okay.
Not everyone knows how to drive. People don't know how to merge.
Yeah. I think I agree with you.
So you agree, Gloria?
Yes, I definitely agree.
Who disagrees?
Yeah.
Who would take
Especially here.
Who would take the other option? Never again make a green light, but you can do all the freeways you want.
No, it's too thrilling to get all the green lights.
I love it. Okay, in the comments, if you're watching live or on the replay, I want to hear your answer as well. Okay, so let's move over to retention. So we already have the nurses. We've done a spectacular job recruiting them. Well, we're just making an assumption. We got them in the door. How do we keep them? What's the best way that we can keep these nurses so they don't leave? They don't take that $20,000 sign-on bonus to go somewhere else. How do we keep them?
Actually, I just want to pull in something that Bridgette was talking about, because I do really think that the interview process is where your retention starts. And she was talking about team interviews, and I understand why we're making offers within 24 hours, but I'm very curious to see what's going to happen long term to those nurses that were brought in. And it gets to Susan's point as well, which is it is like a marriage. And if the person hasn't had a time on the unit to find out what is the practice environment I'm getting into, do I really love this patient population? Do I like the team I'm going to be working with? Do I want to work with this manager? You're already potentially starting at a disadvantage for retention.
That's a great
and
point.
I love that you brought in bringing the interviews to the team members.
And I would like to add to what you're saying that one of the things that we do, because we're in the recruitment business, but one of the things that we do is we like to create little short, realistic job previews where they get a chance to see the hiring manager being interviewed and talking about the job. They see some of their coworkers, potential coworkers, and then also the work environment, to kind of give them a little bit better feel as to what they're getting into. But even that is obviously it's just a short thing. So you're only going to get so much out of that. But I love what you're saying, that it seems like it would take more than 24 hours, but I think it's a matter of competition. That if you bring them in and they got 2 other offers and you're taking 2 weeks to give them an offer because you want to be thorough, like you've already lost them. Unfortunately, right now, that's what we're running into.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to suggest something else. Okay. I'm going to suggest.
Go ahead.
That if the reputation of the hospital, if the kind of the talk that goes out about this hospital is that it is a great hospital for nurses, and there's a whole list of reasons why, you're going to have a waiting list because people will not leave. And that's the attraction of Magnet, as long as Magnet does not become a battering ram.
Okay, all right. And
right,
Bridgette,
as long as being a Magnet hospital is.
Oops, she went out. She went away. So I know Gloria and Bridgette, you were about to say something. Gloria, you want to try it first?
Yeah, so it's interesting about this interviewing process. I'm thinking about it from obviously an academic standpoint right now. But, in California, a lot of times they use something called multi-criteria. So you meet a certain, whatever, GPA, all of this to get in. And people keep trying to push us away from an interview process. And I think this interview process is extremely important because you want to see, why are they getting into this? What is the reason? Is it a good thing? And I hate when I hear things like, oh, I heard it's a really good job, or, you can make really good money, or, things like that. That should never, ever be the motivating factor, because you have to like to take care of people that really need you. So it's a whole different ball game. But it's interesting because I find that a lot in academia, they're pushing away because there's such a demand right now that they're trying to find in everybody's mind what's a good way of getting people in. Just use objective criteria. But I'd be curious to hear how people feel about this subjective criteria, because I think it's important.
Go ahead, Dr. McClarty.
I agree with you. And I was saying that it has to be the content of the interviews. So you really want to know what is the individual looking for, and the individual has to know what you're looking for, and they really have to know what they're getting into, because oftentimes the information or what's being communicated can be lost in translation when they're reading the description of the job. But once you sit them down, and it's not just coming from the manager or the supervisor who's conducting the interview, but once they hear it from the person who's actually performing that job every day, you can see that change in their face. Oh, this is not what I was expecting, or, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to do. And listening to what they're interested in, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Sally, that we have a great candidate over here who's really interested in OR. She doesn't want to do primary care, and I think she'd be great for you. And that's how we keep the ball rolling. So it shouldn't be this really cold or scientific way of getting it done, and we can still get it done within 24 hours.
Exactly.
And Bridgette, it's like that execution you talked about of the autonomy, because the unit-based leader is the one building the team and needs to manage it. It's your first line of insight into what is the work environment that I'm about to get into.
Right.
If the interview is a bit rocky, imagine what it might be like.
Exactly.
Right. When everything has gone to Zoom, it's been very interesting because we have found people reading scripts. And then getting into the clinical area, and I've gotten, not many, but I've heard of calls from the hospitals that will say they don't want to go in the room. I'm like, they don't go in the room. They got to go and take care of the patients, right? And they're just scared. I'm like, no, you can't text them. You have to go in and actually take care of these patients. So they're scared. They don't think that this is all about.
I mean, not to just belabor that point, but I think when you're talking about new grads in particular, it does give them an opportunity. For me, if a new grad came in and they've never been in a hospital environment before, typically that wasn't if I was interviewing them for a nurse position. They might have been interviewing for a PCA or a nursing aide position. Right. But you can tell even in the interview of, is this person going to be able to overcome this? And what do I need to do to support them through that?
Absolutely.
Because we shouldn't expect all of the people that are coming out of nursing school to be able to run into a room unabashedly. I'd be horrified if they did. They're nervous for good reason. But then what is our responsibility to help them through that? Yeah.
Excellent point.
One thing I was a little, you guys can help me with this. You ladies can help me with this. I struggle with this. Is sometimes you'll submit a nurse to a particular manager and they say, oh, well, they don't have such and such experience, so I'm not going to consider them. When they've been a nurse for several years, right? And everybody's new at something at some point, right? So it's like, why would you not consider this person just because they don't have one little piece of experience you were looking for? So help me, is this something that we should continue to do, or is this something we should relook at? Who wants to talk about that?
I feel like Gloria had some. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just shutting off my computer thing, so I couldn't hear them. They were printing a resume.
Oh, wow. Susan. Gloria. It's Gloria that was heard. Okay. Okay, no problem. We didn't even hear anything. Dr. McClarty, go ahead. You were going to say something. And then once Dr. Mazur gets her microphone going, we can let her chime in.
So I think we absolutely should take a look at it. I recently hired a practical nurse with only a year of experience to work in our primary care clinic setting. She's one of our star performers. And I think it's being able to tap in and tune into an individual when you're interviewing them. I mean, what do you, it's a perception, and being able to get to that other level of understanding an individual and what they sincerely want to do, what their capabilities are. You have to understand that. And once you onboard them, your job as a leader is not over. Who do you tag them up with? What is your responsibility for following up with them? I provide them with agendas. You're going to come back and follow up with me. Your responsibility is not just, oh, I'm out here and I'm doing this, but I'm giving you responsibilities so that I know that you're going to know how to fish, and you're going to be someone who can be a high performer. And you and I are going to meet in the beginning every week. And later on, as I determine you're headed in the right direction, we can change that to every 2 weeks. We're going to make this a relationship that we're both committed to. And if that's not the case, we'll figure that out early on so that we can, she can decide, he can decide to sever ties, or that can be a hard decision that I have to make. Or actually, it won't be a hard decision because we'll have black and white proof that this is just not the direction that we need to take. So no, I don't think it should be the case that they don't have the experience and so I'm moving on. No. What do they say? You cut your nose to spite your face? No.
Exactly. Go ahead, Dr. Mason. I know you had a thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we tend to overrate experience if we don't know what the actual experience is. And unless we understand what is meaningful and what gives joy to the person we're talking to, what is fulfilling for them, they could be very skilled at something, but it's lost its meaning. And that's really what burnout is. So that they come from one hospital burned out, why do they think that going into another one, that burnout will not continue? Because the burnout is in the individual. So in our company, we have very little turnover, but all through the pandemic, we all personally made sure that we connected with everyone at home and we knew what they were doing and that they had a stake in the outcome. So in a hospital, that would translate to every housekeeper, every facilities manager, every CNA, every RN, every physician has to know that they have a stake in the survivability and quality of the lived experience for the patient. And if they don't own that stake, there'll be a problem. And if it doesn't show up now, it'll eventually show up.
Appreciate that. I had some comments come in while we were talking just now. The latest one is that Cassandra said, thank you, and good to have you back, Cassandra. She's commenting on here. I love this. She says, I say really look at it. She's at Rollis. She says, gone are the days where hiring all the skills on the job description is required. If they have a learning attitude, give them a chance, unless what they need to know is crucial to doing their job and need it immediately, then that's a different story, but still should be considered. And I had another one a little bit earlier, and you guys can comment on any of this if you want. Glenn Powell, he says, in my experience, the secret to superior retention is having leadership treat talent like any other top priority and hold managers at every level accountable for talent management. Very few leaders are evaluated and promoted on how well they develop and manage the full talent pipeline. Okay, I love that comment so much, I got to give him this one on that one. And I like Cassandra's too. So thank you very much. Those are awesome comments. So who wants to speak on that first? Go ahead, Bridgette.
So I'll speak on it again. A great mentor told me about hiring for heart. You can teach skills. Most people who've acquired certain credentials and degrees, they can be taught skills, but you can't teach heart. And once you figure out that they have that heart, 9 times out of 10, you want them on your team and you can teach them the rest of it.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that and talk about Jean Watson's work in human caring, because her sense of the relationship between the caregiver and the patient is that it is equal. It is not different. It is not an us and them. It is that the nurse, the caregiver, the physician could be in bed in 10 minutes. The vulnerability is equal, but there's no connectedness, real human to human, compassion expressed one-on-one. And the excuse is there's no time, but most of us know when you really connect with someone, it takes the blink of an eye. It takes authenticity. It takes that you are vulnerable and you feel so deeply for the suffering and the angst of the patient and the family.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, without that, we have really an automobile repair shop.
That's right.
Right? We're all engineers.
Mm-hmm. Dr.
Yes.
Blotti, you sound like you said you use one of the same persons that Dr. Mays was
we
referring
used
to.
her as our theorist. We used Jean Watson as our theorist, and we picked her because we felt like that was the component of nursing that was starting to wane. And I've actually spent time with her, and she's wonderful because she does talk about all the things that Dr. Mays is talking about. And it's the part that when I go to the hospitals and talk with them about our graduates or our students, it's one of the things I think they do like, because they want this in their hospital too.
That's right.
Their leaders want it, but they're like, maybe you could start it in the beginning, and then by the time they get to us, they'll really be able to make a big difference. And I'm going to tell you something very interesting. We have our English teacher, believe this or not, in the prereqs, start Jean Watson's theory. Unheard of. Yep, and it really, and he's not a nurse, but he said, I really love what she says. She talks about caring, and he has a sick family member, and he starts it with them. All their papers are written on her, and by the time they get to us, they're quoting us the theory, which I sort of love. So it's something to think about, definitely.
Really?
Yeah,
cool.
I think so. We've gone to Jean to, the nurses in the Middle East. We've been doing that for 8 years. My husband and I have co-sponsored that conference with Jean. And I will tell you that her commitment to the heart of humanity, that she feels that is what is at stake.
Yeah.
When we only have the COO looking at the bottom line, which is monetary, and not looking at the human bottom line, that we have a big problem. And that's what we're experiencing now. Yes. Nurses would like to find a home.
Yeah.
So I've got
They'd like to find. Okay, go ahead.
I've got a comment that I want Sara to speak to, but before we do that, I just want to add to what you guys said to show you how committed I am to this. We have been researching and analyzing sign-on bonuses for nurses for about a year and almost a year and a half, since March of last year. And I've invested thousands of dollars of having a researcher research those things. I asked her to stop researching that the end of last month, end of August, because it's run its course. It's not about sign-on bonuses anymore. I think it's about addressing some of the issues that are there. So what I'm going to have her do, and I'm going to ask you guys some help with this, in the comments as well as you, I want to ask y'all to help me to have her look up certain search words. What should she be looking for in job descriptions to show the type of search words like caring and things like that they should be looking for? And I want to start kind of collecting a good base of what these postings should look like. And of course, we don't try and portray something we're not, right? I'm not saying don't advertise it if you don't have it, but knowing words to use. So I'm going to let that sit with you, but let me just give this comment for Sara to talk about. Cassandra gave this, by the way, Cassandra Govan. She says, people stay in jobs when they feel valued, respected, understood, and that their voice is heard and matters. They don't want to simply fill a quota. I also think they need to truly know what the role entails, full circle, typical patients, clients, team member personalities, and definitely the management team and how they really operate. The reason why I want Sara, you to address it is from a leadership standpoint. How can leaders do a better job of that, what she just stated?
Yeah. First, great point, Cassandra. I totally agree with you. And I think there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And the first gets back to a point that Bridgette made earlier, which is we do need to look at our leaders as the humans that they are. So if they're not doing a good job of it, then we should step back and find out, how did they get in these positions? Do they have the training and the onboarding and the mentorship that they need to do it better? Because often if we're talking about leaders that are hiring people, they're probably frontline leaders and they are compressed. And Bridgette did a really nice job describing that at the beginning of this conversation, of all of the things that are flowing to them from the top, and they're also hearing it all from the folks that are out at the front line. How can we do it better? I think just if we're talking to, say, nurses that are coming out and you're entering the workforce or you're already in it, I think begin to expect more from your leaders and engage in dialogue with them. This gets to some of that learned helplessness. And I would say also another concept of psychological safety. Are you in an environment where you can walk into your nurse manager and say, things are not going well? Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what needs to be different. And here's the ways that I want to contribute. Yeah. Ideally, you're in a work environment where you can have that conversation. If you are not, maybe contact Rollis and see if where that does exist. But if you are, you owe it to bring the issues forward and to partner with the leader around it, because they can't do better if they don't know that they're not doing well. And I think this is another point that was made earlier, and I forgot who made it. Leader, it is a very isolating position to be in, to be a leader. You get very little feedback other than perhaps through surveys and the things that come out, and then you'll know all the things you're doing wrong. But really engaging with your leader and making sure they know what it is that you're looking for is a way that I think they can do it better. And leaders out there, because I do speak to you, you need to be willing to hear it.
Yeah, yes. That's a good point too.
Really, yeah, I have found, as I also am the CEO of a company, and I felt that isolation and I hate it. So we spread our leadership out so it doesn't reside in one person, except for maybe the financial and legal decisions that have to be made. But working from consensus debriefing, having a meaningful debriefing about what's going well and what isn't going well, and taking action in a timely fashion, not hearing something isn't going well, and then you don't talk about it for 6 months and nothing happens.
Right.
Right.
Yes, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I did get a comment that came in from RET. Thank you for this. Short staffing has already been a problem prior to COVID. Now, with more nurses leaving the bedside because of being overworked for lack of staff, a safe working environment along with increased pay is how to keep a majority of nurses. Cassandra is correct when she said people stay in jobs when they feel valued and respected. They don't feel respected when traveling nurses make 3 to 4 times more for the exact same job. It's not only nurses, it's the phlebotomists, housekeeping, respiratory therapists. They're all overwhelmed. So, yeah, that's a great comment. Okay, we're coming towards the end.
Do you mind if I...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, what'd you say?
I was going to say, we're coming towards the end. What I would like each of you to do is just kind of give your last concluding comments. And if you want to include what search words that I should be using to search for, like like if you were, what are some good words like about what the practice is like that you would like to hear about that practice if it's true? But go ahead, Sara, if you want to pick up on that comment, feel free.
Oh, no, I can pick up. This will be my concluding words at the same time. I'll just pick it up because I think the last comment that you shared is one that we need to really just honor, which is people are burnt out at higher rates than they've ever been. It is very hard to care when you're burnt out. It's one of the signs of burnout is the cynicism. And I think to put that on the person that's burnt out is irresponsible and unfair, and pay isn't going to make it better. So I think that the collective response needs to be to acknowledge that and to not make it about the person if we're seeing that they're not able to engage in caring in the way that we want them to, and to step back and to think about what are the systems that need to be changed so that we can bring that back into the heart of nursing. And so to that end, my search terms that I would be looking for in job descriptions would be opportunities for professional development. I'd look for that term, and supportive management structures.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Dr. Blotti, you want to give us some concluding comments, and if you have any search terms for me?
Yeah, well, I like the word kindness because I think that goes a long way. And I think if we understand each other and we don't try to hurt one another, I think life is much better for us. And that's how you retain people. That's how they respect you. That's how they want to work for you and work with you, alongside you, to make it, and then to give them some enthusiasm for what does the future hold. You know, if we keep saying things are horrible, they're going to believe that it's terribly horrible. We got to think about, you know, I'm still excited and I'm getting older. So I think to myself, you know what? I love what I do. I love who I am and what I've become in this role of a nurse and a nurse executive. But I want to share that with the younger ones and get them excited. The one thing I do see, and I agree with everybody on this panel, is that I can't even find people interested in leadership. Nobody wants these dean jobs. There's 25 jobs available out here right now. No, they're like, I don't want to do what you do. No way do I want to do this. So that's sort of sad, right? And I want them to be excited about it and say, look, you can really change people's lives. You can make life great. So we got to start to look for people that are kind. They want excellence in practice, and they're supportive to one another. This hurting each other is got to go out the window right now. It's wrong.
Absolutely.
It's
I love that. And you know what? The reason why you're having a hard time is we haven't talked yet. See? So if we had talked about that, I can help you with those 25 dean positions. But go ahead. All right. So
that's right.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I love the kindness. That was amazing. I'm definitely going to add that on all those you mentioned. Dr. McClarty, how about you?
So I'm going to go back to what I believe is going to come out as the root cause of our issues in nursing, and that is leadership, that frontline nursing leadership. And I think one of the clauses you should use is invested in nurse leader development. I think we have to totally take a re-look at how we address developing our nurse leaders, and it doesn't start once they become a nurse. It actually starts as when we're learning to become nurses, and it has to continue on throughout our career development. So I think that's where we have to work, and that we're going to learn more and more as we start to take a look at it.
Love that. That's awesome. And Dr. Mazur?
Okay, two things. Compassionate leadership.
Like that too.
And lived empathy. Lived empathy. That's not pretending. That's not faking it. That is like lived kindness. Loving kindness is the term that Gene Watson uses. And in the study they did at Rush Memorial in Chicago, they had a 6-question survey trying to test the outcomes of human caring of her Caritas model. And the first question was, during your hospitalization, were you treated with loving kindness?
Ooh. Wow.
So if the people who are sitting in those C-suites are mechanical thinkers, they look at the whole thing mechanistically, they will be the stoplight. They will be the stoplight. So the culture of the hospital is felt in every unit, and believe me, patients move across the hospital, landing in many different units. And if it's not chocolate through and through, where the philosophy, mission, practice, and language is the same,
Ooh, that's
it's
so true.
very, very difficult.
That's so
Yeah.
true. Because when they fill out that whatever the paperwork is,
Yeah.
they're not going to think about, oh, ER was great, but ICU wasn't so much. They're just going to think about the hospital was
Right.
great or a hospital wasn't. So you're so right about it being all the way through and through. I love that. You guys made great points. I cannot believe an hour it basically has passed. I do want to get some feedback from the community here and see what they think. But see, they love it. They thought you were amazing too. So thank you very much. You guys did a great job
Thank you
today.
for the opportunity.
What's that?
I said, thank you for the opportunity. I love listening to my colleagues.
Yes, thank you. This was
Right.
great.
Thank you all.
You know,
And I love listening to each of you.
Thank you.
you know, even if we can't
Yes.
fix everything in an hour, we can at least help each other just by talking about it, right? And who knows what will come out
Right.
of this in the future. So definitely appreciate you. I appreciate all the great comments we had today, too. I mean, Cassandra and Glenn, I didn't get a chance to read the last ones from Cassandra and Glenn. Those are great. But we're going to read them all as soon as this is over. Thank you for everyone being on today. Appreciate y'all being on too. Joanne, if you could let me know when it's okay to hit the stop stream button. But let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi.
Okay, but stay on just a second if you can before I hit the end stream button. She'll hit me in the. And I'll be watching the chat, Joanne.
Very good night.